You are listening to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience. Before we get started, just a reminder that you can find all of my available rental properties on my website at marcguzman.com. If you own investment property, click on the Owner Services section to see our complete list of services. This episode and wine tasting is sponsored by Lenny Clark with Prime Lending. Lenny Clark is a loan officer specializing in residential home lending. He communicates with you every step of the way, and his honesty sets him apart from the rest. He's able to think outside of the box due to his experience and is able to tailor a loan program to fit your needs. If you can't qualify just yet, not a problem. He will let you know what you need to do in order to be ready. Lanny is also backed by Prime Lending, which is one of the biggest and fastest growing lending banks in the nation. They have simplified the home lending process down to 5 steps. And FYI, step number 5 is to relax and enjoy your new home. So contact Lenny Clark today at 510-964-0620. Everything starts off as an idea. For Alex Nerguizian, his idea was to start a food truck that sells gelato and espresso. For a while, this idea was just that, only an idea, until it wasn't. Alex decided that the time for talking about his idea had come and gone, and now he owns and operates Nissa Espresso and Gelato Bar, which made its debut on July 4th at the Berkeley Marina. Today, we talked to Alex about how he made his dream a reality.
Had and still have for my career, which is financial education, financial empowerment.
Okay.
And, that became a little business, because it's making money.
Mm-hmm.
But I stopped making videos when I should have kept going. Because
Yeah.
it was like...
Well, that's the thing about social media and marketing for business is you got to stay consistent with that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's hard. You start getting busy, and then, if you think about it, you have to create the video.
Yeah.
Right? And then have the content ready, create the video, then it's either going to be a very simple, basic video unless you spend time editing, or you have to hire an editor.
Yeah.
And then getting it posted, getting it spread out to all the channels. And then if you really, really want to do some amazing marketing, you then take these longer form pieces of content, break it up into a ton of smaller pieces of content, and then you have to put that out everywhere. It's time consuming. And I did that for a while.
By yourself?
By myself, yeah, to where we were recording these like hour-long podcasts, and then I would take the video back home, and literally at nighttime for 2-3 hours every single night, I would sit down and watch the podcast, and then I'm having to break up all these each podcast into like 5 or 6 different individual videos that I can then edit into 1-minute videos for Instagram. Then I'd put them on Snapchat, on Facebook. But then I took it a step further. I wouldn't just post the video itself. I would have the headline on top and then have the captions on the bottom. But creating the captions takes time. So that's why I spend 2 to 3 hours per night basically watching and then cutting up the video and editing and doing all this. And it's very time consuming. And it's great marketing and it works. It's just so time consuming. And then to hire someone, it's like, okay, you got to spend money on it.
Yeah.
Wow. So
we're recording, so
we're live. Okay.
So should I move this up or?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
It's directional, so as long as it's pointing at your mouth.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. So as long as you speak into it, it'll pick it up really well, and then.
This is a lot better than what I use for my videos. I just use the camera, and that's it. It catches the volume.
Well, a lot of cameras pick up really well. I think right now, because we're on Facebook Live, the cameras, we use the audio for Facebook Live instead of the actual mic. And it picks up really well on the video. For the podcast that goes onto iTunes and iHeart, that's where we use the actual audio, and then that gets edited, and Sam does the editing and gets it posted up there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're live.
We're live right now. So... yeah,
everyone.
Wave hello. Now you have a Facebook channel too, so we'll go ahead and link you up on Facebook.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. And what's your YouTube channel? We can link.
So
up
my
to
YouTube channel is separate from the truck, It has to do with financial education. It's Finanzas al Instante.
Okay.
In Spanish. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead. We'll link that up because that's how people find you these days, right?
Yeah.
That's one reason why I do a podcast is that some people will find me through the podcast and then find out I'm a real estate agent and property manager, and then I've gotten listings and rentals from the podcast.
Because of that.
Yeah. I mean, there was a couple that found me on YouTube that live here in Pinole.
It's amazing, man.
And it's like I've been in real estate for 15 years, but they found me through YouTube and they found my podcast. It's so trippy and weird when people tell you that. And it's like, really? Like of all things, like that's how you found me. Yeah. It's really weird. So
and like you don't get it until it happens that first time.
Yeah.
Until somebody tells you, I found you on YouTube. You're like, I got to put more time on YouTube.
Yeah.
But like people have never gotten into the social media thing. They're like, yeah, until like you actually get a lead, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God. So for every 10 videos I get a lead, and so this is just math, like I'll do 100, I'll get 10 leads, whatever,
Yeah, I've got someone coming onto the podcast next week. He's a loan officer. I did a podcast with him in September of last year. About 2 months ago. So this is like 9 months after we did the podcast together.
Mm-hmm.
A lady contacts me on Facebook and says, hey, I'm listening to the podcast with Travis Credit Union and this loan officer. What do you think of him? I'm like, well, he's a great loan officer, this and that. We started talking on Facebook, and I said, do you want me to put you in touch with him? She's like, yeah, sure. I sent her over to him.
Wow.
I mean, so it's all evergreen content, right? Once it's online, once it's there, you never know who's going to see that in the future and then come to you for advice. That's why it's always good just to post as much content out there as you can.
Possible. I always give the example of just throwing hooks out in the water. The more hooks you have out there, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Like eventually, like one fish will bite one of them.
Yeah.
And once they bite one, then they're like, oh my God, look at all these other videos that they have.
Yeah.
But, the more you put out there, the more likely you're going to catch something and then give them access to everything that you have.
Yeah, so. I mean, it's so I follow this guy, Gary Vaynerchuk, and he, he's really big on putting content out there. And he says it the best way. Each piece of content you put out there gives you an at-bat. And that's what really matters.
Yeah.
How good is your content? That's a whole different story, right? But each time you post something, that's another at-bat for more business, for more customers, for exposure. And the more you put out there, it's funny, the more your reputation and the more people get to know you, right?
Yeah,
and
it's
many
exponential almost.
Exactly. Yeah. And many times it's not even based on your views or downloads or your followers, because sometimes you just need one person, the right person, to see it, and that's all that matters. That one right person can then all of a sudden change your entire business, change your life, life journey, where you're headed. I mean, it's you just got to put content out there, but it's really hard to explain people because I was looking at your background. So you were a financial consultant, you still do, right?
Yeah.
And helping entrepreneurs and businesses in developing strategy for their own business. And I've talked to many, being in real estate, we're all independent contractors, and it's really hard to get that through people's head of marketing and putting it out there. And like what you said earlier is, until they taste it, they don't know.
Right.
And then when you taste that first lead that comes from it, it gets very addicting.
Yeah. No. I mean, when I received my first penny from YouTube, I was like, oh my God.
Like, this is for real.
This is for real. Like, but until you don't receive that first whatever, like, you're like, yeah, you hear about it. But when you receive money for the first time, it's like, all right. And so what did I do to get that? If I do it so many more times, I'll get so much more money. And so, again, it becomes math. It's like, if you just keep doing it, then, the results come through. And, again, it's exponential. The first year that I was doing YouTube, I would probably get like 50 cents, maybe $1, a day. by the second year, I was making $3 a day, because and I didn't put as much work as the first year, and so if you just keep adding, like all of a sudden, it starts growing faster.
Yeah.
And so and then
What are you making off YouTube right now?
and again I stopped, and I'm always kicking myself for it, but
Yeah.
right now probably between $4 and $5 a day.
That's still really good. I mean, it's extra spending cash.
Yeah, and again, I haven't touched it in the last 2-3 years, and it keeps bringing that in. It's like an annuity.
So now, are all your videos in Spanish?
All videos are in Spanish.
So-
I chose that market
Mm-hmm.
because again, you could say, all right, I'm just going to do financial videos in English. There's so many players, and I'm like, no, I gotta be more specific. I need a niche market. I'm like, I'll do it in Spanish.
I love that you say that. So I'm gonna give a shout out for Liliana Ledesma. So she recently just started her podcast, and it's and it's funny. So she came to me asking for advice on how to start a podcast. Sam and I, we both sat down with her, helped her, explained her, here's how you set it up, here's what you do. But I'm telling her, look, you do a lot of business, like real estate business, with the Hispanic community right now. There's not many podcasts right now in just Spanish that target the Hispanic community. And when you type in like real estate or bienes y raíces and start looking up real estate terms in Spanish, like when you're looking for a podcast, the only stuff that comes up are people like in Mexico and in other countries that do podcasts in Spanish.
Exactly.
But someone in San Pablo or Pinole or Oakland that's listening to this, they're not going to do business with someone in Mexico to buy a house in San Pablo.
Yeah.
There's a huge market that's missing there. So I love the fact that you said that and that you gear those videos toward the Hispanic community because
it's specifically geared to the Latino in the U.S. Mind that I have about a 30% U.S. viewer population, and the rest is like worldwide, mostly South America, Latin America. But like most of my videos are geared to the Latino that lives in the U.S. And so, we talk about situations, like opening a bank account, opening credit, starting credit in the U.S. Like I know the credit system here, so that's what I can talk about. I don't know the credit systems in every country, Latin American country.
Yeah.
But, it's somewhat similar. And so people that watch it in other countries still get something out of it, but it's mostly aimed at the Latino.
I'm going to have to share some of your videos with some of the people that come to me completing applications because obviously there's a big Latino population here in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And me being a property manager, I process anywhere from 800 to 1,000 applications every single year with all the rentals that we have. And there's so many people that come to me and say, I don't have any credit. And many people don't know, okay, well, I always ask, well, do you have an ITIN?
Yeah.
And then, oh, I do. I'm like, well, have you put anything on this ITIN? Well, yeah, I've got a credit card. I'm like, there's your credit. A lot of people don't know you can build credit on an ITIN. And there's different ways. And if you don't have an ITIN and if you don't have a social security number, I have a video on YouTube where I explain to them how to build your own credit report. Because credit report is simply like, okay, what's your payment history like in the last 12 months, or your lifetime, right? So if people put together their cell phone bills, their utility bills, anything that they have, 12 months worth of history, put it all together, you basically create your own credit report. Obviously, it's not going to have a score from one of the credit agencies, but many landlords see that and they're like, oh, wow, you're organized and I can see all your payment history. They'll give you a chance, especially when many landlords, when they go online, if it's not a management company, many landlords will use these services that will give them a credit report, but not a credit score, because that's an additional $5 or $10. And so many times they're not even looking at the score; they're looking at just a trade line history. And if you're providing that to them, many of them will accept that.
Yeah. And, again, being organized when you show up, like having these things, like says something about the client. We talk a lot about also creating alternate credit reports, like you mentioned. if it's not going through the credit bureau, like how do you keep track of all your things so that at any moment you can show people, like, I make my rent payments.
How can they do that? Is there like software or apps they can use?
No, usually what I tell them is keep copies of stuff, so it's an actual physical binder.
Mm-hmm.
There are some companies that will report certain things for you.
Mm-hmm.
I have to look more into that, but mostly what I tell my clients is, keep track of all your checks and how, when your rent checks, keep copies of them, just to show any invoice, any receipts that you get, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's mostly like the physical piece of it that you can take with you, to an
interview application or whatever. Yeah. No, that's good advice. So I saw that you tried the wine. How do you like the wine?
Wow, man,
like it?
That was really good. Can't take the rest of it.
Yeah, of course, if you want. Yeah, Ghost Pines Merlot wine, sponsored by Lenny Clark, who's a loan officer here in Pinole.
You're actually the first guest to request to take the wine home with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Usually they always leave it behind, and one of us takes it home. You're the first one to actually want to take it home.
No, this is good.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to take it.
I was kidding, but now I'm not.
Yeah, it's really good wine. It's really good wine. So, Lanny, if you're watching, listening, thank you very much for the wine.
Thank you.
Phenomenal lender, too.
Very smooth, man. Usually, the first sip is always a little
Yeah, especially because we literally just opened this right before going live.
Yeah.
So, typically, with some kind of red wine, you want to let it breathe a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is great right off the bat. And to be honest, when you take this back home, it's going to taste even better. It's going to be breathing this entire episode.
Can't wait. Cool.
So,
Thank you.
So where did you grow up?
So I was born, raised in Argentina. I'm Armenian, 100% Armenian.
And born and raised in Argentina.
Born and raised in
Argentina.
Argentina.
How did that happen?
So the Armenian genocide in the turn of the 20th century, or no, what is it? The turn of the
20th century, right?
Yeah, the turn of
the 19th,
from the 19th to the 20th century. So it was 1915 ish.
Mm-hmm.
There was a genocide in Armenia. A lot of Armenians fled, and some went to Europe. A lot in France. Some came to the U.S. Others went, down to South America. That was our boat.
Mm-hmm.
Mom's side of the family, dad's side of the family, and so there was an Armenian community, and it's really big in Argentina. And so I was born there. I grew up, and at 9.
What part of Argentina?
Quilmes.
Where's that by?
It's about 20 minutes outside of Buenos Aires.
Okay.
And for those of you that have been to Argentina and have drank Quilmes beer, which is like the beer in Argentina, that's the city, town I'm from.
Okay.
So, but again, really close to Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
It'd be like, Pinole to San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and in 89, I came to the U.S. because my grandparents from my mom's side were living here because they moved here during the 60s. My mom moved here during the 60s. And then she went back 10 years later when she was 20 to go see the country that she left, Argentina. She went back, met my dad, and the rest is history. She stayed there, got married, had myself, my sister. So we grew up in Argentina, but then moved to the U.S. To join my mom's side.
So
of the
did you
family
move
here.
straight to the Bay Area?
Yeah, it was Foster City, San Mateo.
What was was it a culture shock for you, or
Huge.
was it huge?
Yeah.
What was the main difference that you experienced?
As much as as much as we're warm on this coast, like I still feel, and this is my opinion, that like there's some other warmness in the Latino culture, like, and the friendships, the everything, just the life is very different.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, different pace.
Pace, like people just, yeah, you work, but then there's the noon time that you get a couple hours off to go eat. You go, have a nap, a siesta. Then you come back to work. You work till about 8, which is later than here. But then, you have dinner like at 9-10, which is, normal.
Yeah.
And, everything's just more like laid back.
Yeah, I've never been to Argentina, but I was recently talking to somebody about Costa Rica, and I've been to Costa Rica a few times, and there's motto down there is pura vida, right?
Yeah,
pure life, and,
totally.
And their mentality is so different that a lot of people, especially Americans that are going there for the first time, it's a culture shock for them because perfect example is when you go to lunch or dinner, it's going to take you 2 to 3 hours because you sit down and they don't come to you for about 30 minutes and then they take your drink order and then they'll come 15 minutes later and then give you a drink order. And it's funny to see people that are not used to that lifestyle and they're frustrated because they've got tours, they've got stuff to do, right?
I know. I know.
And sometimes they just crack up at those people and they're like, hey, calm down.
Yeah.
Life is good. Look at the view. You're next to a beach. It's gorgeous out here. Relax.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different mentality, but it's very relaxing. And I totally get what you say.
And then, the other thing is family. Family there was like, if we lived, apart from each other, it must be like 10, 15 minutes away. Over here, like my family, we have people in Foster City. I have San Francisco. My sister's in D.C. Like, I don't know. It just seems that over here you come and everything's about trying to make it. And, one of the things you put in the line is family and relationships like that.
Yeah.
And you just separate, and you try as hard to keep things as close as possible. But, one thing that I see, and I again, I'm basing it on my experience. Somebody else could have different, but what I saw is that, my family is very close knit in Argentina, and like everybody lives no more than 10, 15 minutes apart from each other. And even my cousins don't really move away. Actually, one just moved away to another part, another province in Argentina, but I mean it's rare,
Yeah.
But maybe through globalization, it's affecting, like people are starting to focus more on themselves rather than the community.
Yeah, but and I agree with what you're saying because if you really look at a lot of the Latino community, and we're not talking about here in the U.S. now, we're talking about in Central America, South America.
Yeah.
They do tend to stay close to each other in very tight-knit communities because my mother's from Guatemala, and she comes from a small town called San Jose, and everyone is related to each other. Like, no one leaves, right? Yeah. Everyone's a cousin of someone in one way or another, right? No one leaves, and it's that very tight-knit community that makes it a very different culture mentality than up here.
Totally.
Yeah, up here you get really caught up in the whole business and, like you said, trying to make it
on your own. It's looked down on to be at home with your parents after a certain age, and so it's different. It's different. There's a lot of societal pressures.
And really in Latin culture, I mean, you stay living with your parents until really you go out and get married.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But if you're a 35-year-old living at home with your mom out here, you're looked at as a loser.
Yeah, no. I mean, and so here's the thing. I came here when I was 9. And so I mostly lived here. And so I have some of that now.
But
know,
you
I
were
became
old
that.
enough. You were old enough though that you can still understand the difference and still see it.
Oh yeah,
And I'm sure you've been back, right?
every year.
Every year.
Every year from when I was 9, I'd go back to Argentina. So just imagine how many trips. I'm 38 now. There might have been a few times that it'd been a couple of years that I hadn't gone back, but a handful of those.
Mm-hmm.
But just imagine the other places in the world I could have seen. But it's, my heart is in Argentina too.
Mm-hmm.
I have my family here. I have my family there. So
And Argentina is a beautiful country.
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But again, I'm talking as an Argentine.
Yeah. So you moved out here in '89. At what year did you get into the financial consulting, and why did you get into that?
So I went to college. I went to Davis. And, when you apply for college, they're like, all right, what do you want to major in? I'm like, oh, I got to pick something, huh? And, all my life I said I want to be an architect.
This is the third person who said they want to be an architect. I was going to become an architect too.
Really?
Yeah.
And, it's somebody, like kids, they get something in their head and, like, that's what you keep saying. I want to be an architect. Well,
Now, do you think that's because, and this is what it was for me, is I wanted to build a dream house one day. Did you have that same?
I love Legos.
Okay.
And so I always loved building. And, that is possibly also one of my,
motivations,
one of
build
my
your own dream
motivations,
house.
building a house, like building something. And then, in high school, I took CAD, and I love, like, making plans and the measurements and stuff like that.
Dude, you sound like me in the high school. It's funny. Yeah. I had the whole drafting table,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
CAD, AutoCAD. I couldn't afford AutoCAD, so I had to, my high school teacher was super cool. He's like, look, it's really expensive. It was like $1,000 back
At that
then.
time, yeah.
And then he was like, look, I'll burn you a copy and give it to you. I'm like, are you serious? And he gave me a burnt copy, which was really cool.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So yeah, I did that, but again, when it came down to it, I was looking through UC Davis, and they really didn't have architecture. So I'm like, all right, got to pick something different. And I'm like, well, maybe mechanical engineering, because you also have plans and
Yeah, it's
measurements
similar.
But in the end, I chose economics. Why? Because that's something that came really easy to me. The econ classes that I took in high school, which, weren't that long. It was just like I think a semester's worth. Like, I really enjoyed it, and it really came easy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like the numbers, like I loved it. And so I ended up choosing managerial economics in Davis. But I said, I'm going to start college taking mechanical engineering classes just to get a taste of it, even before I start my economics major. And so I booked all the mechanical engineering classes, and it took one semester for me to be like, yeah, that's not what I want. Because it was just too much. It was, way out there for me. All the math, the calculus, like, I got it, but it was just like, no.
It just wasn't for you.
It wasn't for me. And that's when I'm like, all right, I'm going to stick with economics. And so that's what I majored in. And then my last year in college, I got a part-time job as a teller for Bank of America. Can we say names?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
For Bank of America.
Yeah, it's a podcast. We can say whatever we want.
Awesome. So, I got a part-time as a teller. And then I'm like, all right, this is just part-time because when I graduate, I'm going to be in the financial field, whatever that meant.
Yeah.
And so I graduated, and, I was waiting for a job to come knocking on my door. And, that never happened because I really didn't understand, it's not just about going to college and graduating and then you get a job. No. You have to do something to find that job, at least the one that
Yeah.
you want. And so at the bank, they said, you know, you can become a personal banker, you know, once you graduate. I'm like, no, you know, like I'm going to get a big job in the financial field. I don't know what I was imagining. And so I
You
graduated.
were thinking you were going to be the CEO of a big hedge fund,
Oh,
right?
totally. I was going to be traveling internationally and whatever. You know, it's like kid's mind, right?
Yeah.
At that moment, I was, what, 20, 22? 20, yeah, 22. And so I ended up going back to the bank saying, all right, I'll take the job as a personal banker. So I did that for a few years. Got really good, you know. Really, it's a sales job.
Mm-hmm.
How many accounts can you open? How many loans can you? So I got good at that. But what was good about the way I was approaching my job is the educational piece. You know, I was really good about like letting people understand how this stuff works. And that's how people, you know, bought in. Because they're like, oh, I get it. I see it. Because I like to draw out things for people. And so got good at that. Then I applied for a premier banker role with Bank of America, which was a banker that also did investments with a high net worth agenda of clients. And so that brought me to San Francisco, you know, back to the Bay. And I did that for 2006 to almost 2009, so about 3 years. And then, of course, the recession came around, and Bank of America bought out Merrill Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
I was part of Bank of America Investments, and now we had 2 investment houses. Well, the bank decided to get rid of Bank of America Investments, which I was a part of.
And they kept Merrill Lynch.
They kept Merrill Lynch. Sorry. And I got the pink slip that said, you know, we were closing the department. So either you take another position within the bank, or, you know, just take the package,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so at that moment in my life, right before the recession, I was already like, all right, what am I going to do with my life? Because this is a job, but it's not like, I don't know if it's the career that I want. And I started, you know, talking to some friends, and one of them, Marco. Hey, Marco. He worked in the financial empowerment section of the nonprofit world. And I'm like, what is that? He's like, well, it's about educating. It's about coaching people with their financial, you know, lives, and helping them with credit and budgeting. And so, you know, when I got that pink slip, you know, he connected me to someone in that field, and I started doing this work. You know, as a
Now, were you independent, or were you working under?
I was independent.
Okay.
Because I started volunteering while still being at the bank. I would come into a nonprofit in San Francisco and give a workshop on credit, on savings, stuff like that, banking. And then when I got let go by the bank, the executive director said, you know what, keep coming, we'll pay you as a consultant. I'm like, awesome. And so that's when I started getting my first taste of becoming self-employed. I just had like a small gig with a nonprofit. Well, that small gig turned into a few small gigs. Other nonprofits in there started saying, hey, can you do a workshop for us? So I was doing workshops, I was doing financial coaching with their clients, and then I started doing trainers to do workshops, locally and nationally. And so I started doing work with NeighborWorks America, who is an intermediary of HUD, you know, government contract. I do work with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, who's under fire right now. But I'm one of their trainers with Unidos US, who used to be National Council La Raza. I'm one of their faculty. And so I do that's my career.
Okay.
I'm a trainer of trainers in the financial empowerment field, and I also do direct work. I give workshops to communities. I do financial coaching. I'm also involved with the Oakland Promise initiative.
Okay.
That helps families with little kids.
So you've been involved in finance and business.
Everything. Do you know Vita sites, tax sites?
No.
Yeah, I also have. I've started many and man one of the Vita sites, which is a volunteer income tax assistance site.
Okay.
It's a program through the IRS that teams up with an organization to put on a free tax clinic for communities of low to moderate income.
Okay.
And we do it for free.
Wow.
So yeah, fully involved.
So fully involved in finance, and now you have a Gelato and Espresso truck.
Right.
So
everybody's like, what?
Yeah. So at what point did you decide I want to have a Gelato and Espresso truck? And how did that even develop?
Right. So one of the organizations that I do classes for is Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center, right? And what I teach is the financial classes for businesses, like financial projections, business credit. So when I teach these classes, or when I started teaching these classes, my perspective has always been as a consultant. And so, yeah, start your business, but all I knew was consultant. Like me, self-employed, just no overhead, just me, myself, and I. And so I started getting this itch of what's it like to have a retail business? And, that small itch started growing and growing.
So you wanted that experience.
And I'm all about experience. Everything I do is about learning through experience, because I believe that's the best way to learn.
Yeah.
To jump. If you don't jump, you can spend the years and years trying to read up on everything and get everything right. But you got to jump sometime.
What do you think is the biggest or the number one reason why people don't make that jump? Because so many people have ideas.
Yeah.
Many of these ideas are great, but again, everyone's got great ideas. It's the people that execute on those ideas that end up winning.
It's fear of failure. It's fear of failure, fear of losing money. It's fear.
Fear of what someone else thinks.
Could be that too. Yeah. But I think it's mostly they don't want to see themselves fail. And you'll notice that people will talk about stuff and they'll take it to the point where they have to write a check. And when that time comes that they have to write that first big check, people are like, yeah, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened to me. That happened to me. Because I came to a point with this food truck where I had to write that first big check. And I'm like, what am I doing? Especially because this is totally out of left field for me. And I'm like...
So did you back off initially? Or you still wrote the check?
I wrote the check. But it was that moment that I'm like, should I go to this appointment where I know I'm going to have to write a check? And some people will unconsciously keep pushing that appointment further out. They're like, oh, I can't make it today. But it's really them saying, I'm not sure. People that make it are so sure about what they want to do that they don't even see failure.
Or the other mentality that they see failure as a necessity to succeed.
Yes.
Because you do see some of these very big entrepreneurs that, they self-admit it. I mean, hey, and if you look at their track records, sometimes they're failing until they finally figure it out and it clicks.
Yeah. And that was part of my experience. And so that itch, right? That was one of the big reasons why I wanted to start retail. Now, what retail? I don't know, right? Why the food truck? I've always been interested in the food truck business. Like, there's something about, it.
And I feel like it's booming right now too.
It was booming a lot. It slowed down, but I believe that in the Bay Area, it's going to be the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And not just for food. You know, you're going to start seeing mobile hairstylists. You're going to start seeing mobile tattoo artists. You might even see mobile real estate companies.
Yeah, there is a company where they basically converted one of those Airstreams,
Mm-hmm.
and they converted those into a fancy office.
There we
and
go.
they take that everywhere. And
Yeah.
so they'll have it parked in front, and I can't remember the name of the company, but they'll have it parked in front of open houses.
Yeah.
And if you want to write an offer, you come right into their office. They write it up for you.
Yeah, and again, it's going to keep booming in the Bay Area. Why? Because, I mean, everybody can answer that. The price of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what does it cost to rent an office? You know, I'm not saying it's nothing in the food truck or in the mobile business, but the expenses are so much less. And so starting an actual restaurant is crazy. Like, and so you have all these chefs that are just starting up and, you know, have visions and dreams of becoming, you know, having their own restaurants. But then, like, you break it up for them. And you're like, yeah, you're going to probably need, you know, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000.
Yeah.
And so how do you start? Well, you know, much like buying a home, sometimes it's not about jumping into the home of your dreams. It's about buying a small condo first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Testing that out, and then eventually leaping from there.
Yeah, and I guess the food truck business is also a great way for restaurants that do have a staple location to then spread the news about their food too.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a restaurant, I think it's called Tacos La Raza in Richmond, and they also have a mobile food truck. And that food truck goes all over the Bay Area, basically, you know,
Yeah.
selling the exact same food and then spreading the word, hey, we're also located over here.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it's a great way to basically have a second location at a very discounted cost.
Right. But I would say it's a totally different business model. You know, like, to have a food truck, there's so many different things that you have to worry about
Mm-hmm.
than if you have a restaurant. It is easier if you have a restaurant to have a food truck. But, you know, I've known some food trucks that started as a food truck, then got a brick and mortar shop and let go of the food truck because they're like, we can't do both.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too much. Like, the necessities of one are very different than the other.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that mainly because of the preparation time, maybe?
The prep time. And then the food truck needs its own management almost, because a food truck is about hustling and getting events.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the restaurant, you're there, people come to you.
Hmm.
You got to go to
Yeah,
the
that's
crowds.
completely different.
It's totally different. Now, my dream is not to have a brick and mortar. My dream is to stay food truck.
And so now your food truck, though, is Gelato and Espresso.
Gelato Espresso bar.
Why Gelato and Espresso?
So, again, growing up in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, there's a big Italian influence. With that Italian influence came gelato and the cafe culture. And so that's what I grew up in. You know, like, I'd have gelato all the time. And, you know, I was always in a cafe atmosphere, even
Mm-hmm.
as kids. You know, your parents would go to the cafe and you just sit around, you know, they had their cafe. And so it all became part of my childhood. And so I wanted a truck that would show part of me. And that's that. You know?
Now, I've been to Italy before, and I've had gelato in Italy,
Mhm.
and it's very different than the gelato that you find here in the States. And
Yeah.
it seems like the gelato in Italy is a lot creamier,
Mhm.
softer texture. Is that the same, similar in Argentina?
Yeah.
And then how's your gelato compared to that?
Okay, so first of all, gelato and ice cream. A lot of people are like, what's the big difference, right? Gelato is made with more milk, less cream.
Okay.
Ice cream is made with more cream, less milk.
Okay.
Therefore, the gelato is not as dense, because it has less fat. It's fluffier. It's softer. It also gets served at a lower temperature than ice cream. So ice cream can be harder, gelato softer.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a softer serve, I guess. And then at lower temperatures, you taste more. Because when something is super cold, it loses a lot of taste, right?
Yeah.
And so those are the main differences between those two. Now, you're saying gelato in the U.S., or were you saying the ice cream in the U.S.?
No, gelato in the U.S.
In the US.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a difference between the two, and I don't know if it's the way the process of I assume it's the way it's made, but
Well, if you're calling it gelato here, you're trying to get as close to what Italians are doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, maybe at one point, there was a difference, but you have all these gelaterias now that are trying to get it like on point with how they have it in Italy. That said, the water's different here. Like there's differences in maybe the water, the way the water gets filtered here,
mm-hmm.
maybe the products that it gets made with, the eggs, the sugar, maybe there's slight differences, but as far as like technique, I think that they're using same techniques as in Italy.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I make gelato, but the gelato that I have in the truck is not my gelato.
Okay, so why is that?
So, this journey's been crazy. November, I started, and my idea was to make my own gelato truck and make my truck that with my own gelato. So that went from a gelato truck to then a gelato and coffee to then a gelato and coffee truck that I just sourced, everything. Why? Because in order to make your own food in California, you need to go through another licensing process to sell to the public, right? And I'm like, you know what? Let me tackle the truck first. Let me see if it's a good business. If it's a good business, then I'll spend all the money for the licensing and the kitchen and everything that I need to invest to start making my own gelato. So I'm just breaking it up into different steps.
Okay.
Yeah. So as of right now, I source it from a fellow Argentine that makes amazing gelato and actually makes the dulce de leche gelato like we do it in Argentina.
That sounds very good.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. You're testing the waters with the business model first, and then if it works out, then you can improve the actual product.
I don't know. I don't want to say improve the product because what I carry is really good. But then to start cutting down my costs in the product, I got to start making it on my own, right?
Okay.
But the obstacle to get to that point is all the licenses and the everything that I need to do in order to make my own product to be able to sell to the public.
Okay, that's an interesting model or the way you're doing it, because it seems like many people just jump all in right off the bat, and then many people, most small businesses will fail. What's the percentage? Is it like 70% or something like that actually fail their first or second year or something like that?
Yeah, there's many statistics out there. I usually, I like to use common sense, and common sense tells me that 25% of businesses make it. Why? Because 25% of businesses either have a good idea and good management, and the other 75 fail with one of those. It's either bad idea, good management, good idea, bad management, or bad idea, bad management. And so they fail 75% of the time because of that. And then you have 25% left, good idea, good management.
Okay. Now your food truck. I mean, are you mobile every single day? I mean, what's your hours of operation? And then, are you really going from spot to spot, or are you just stuck in one place where people can find you?
No. I do events only.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the promises that I made to myself. This is not going to become my life. It's going to become almost like a hobby business.
Okay.
That I, give so many days to in my week. And so I look for the big events, and that's where I go, where the people
Like
are.
what kind of events?
So this weekend, 28th and 29th, I'll be at the Kite Festival in Berkeley. Then there's
The Kite Festival?
the Kite
Is
Festival.
that down by the water?
The Berkeley Marina.
Berkeley Marina. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that big park that they had down there by the DoubleTree Hotel.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. The weekend after that, I'm going to be in Alameda for an antique fair, like a once-a-month antique fair. Then I'm talking to Oakland First Fridays. I don't know if you've heard of the First Friday event that they have. It's pretty big. Off the Grid, which is a coalition of food trucks, also has events happening in places. Food Truck Mafia, another coalition of food trucks. These companies that bring food trucks together and say, all right, you're all going to be,
Yeah, those are really popular and
They
really
are.
big. I mean,
Yeah.
they draw huge crowds.
They do. So those are the type of events. And then private. I just had a private event in Richmond not a couple days ago.
I keep talking about you'll have to come do our grand opening here because I just opened up the management company January 1st, so I keep talking about doing some kind of grand opening, and so we'll have to have your
Let's
truck
do
out
it.
here. Yeah,
Let's do it. Yeah.
Now you brought some samples here. What did you bring here?
So I couldn't bring gelato. I couldn't bring coffee because it wouldn't have made it here. But we also have some baked goods that we sell.
Okay.
And also a show, and actually, take out the last one, a show of my childhood. These are called alfajores.
What are they called?
Alfajores. And so alfajores are, just think of 2 shortbread cookies with dulce de leche, caramel in the middle. This one, of course, is not dipped in chocolate. This one is.
Okay.
Have at it. Actually, I would start with this one.
Okay.
This is just a orange dip cookie, but this is really what I'm going for.
Okay.
This I have to have in the truck as well, just because at some events there's other vendors that carry these, and this is from a local company, baking company, and so I can't sell these, and so I have to sell these. But that's what I really want to sell.
Let's try this. Wow.
So again, a bunch of caramel in the middle, cookies.
Oh my God. That is heaven.
And dulce de leche is like milk caramel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's milk, sugar, boiled until it burns to a caramel.
That is really delicious. That's incredible. And that would go great with an espresso.
Right?
Yeah.
And so again, I got gelato, I got coffee, I got alfajores, and that's my...
Actually, this would go really good with red wine, too. Wow. That's so good. It's amazing. So what's this one called again?
Alfajor.
Alfajor. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very, very delicious.
It's rich,
Yeah.
but, it's not that big either.
It's a nice treat. I don't know how you could be around that all day long.
I know, right? No, I have, with my family, we have a sweets policy at home. So I have a 6-year-old, a 1-year-old, and then myself and my wife. So for the family, we can have sweets Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Just a weekend.
Just, the weekend.
That's a good policy.
And so I can be around it.
But how
And-
much are you allowed to eat during the weekend?
Oh, There's no rule. we
You
can
make
go
up
all
for
out.
the entire week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
So what are your future plans with this? I mean, you talked about strictly only doing events. You talked about how maybe one day create your own gelato.
Mhm.
What's the ultimate goal with this? Is it really strictly going to stay as a hobby, or do you have one day possibly even taking a step further and franchising
right.
the food
No,
truck?
I've thought about franchising, but I'll be honest. I'm living my goal right now. I'm living my dream. I've gotten to it. Like, I can actually say I was a food trucker, you know,
Yeah.
because I'm here. And so I need to now think forward. You know, I need to give it more thought. And yeah, you know, it's crossed my mind that maybe franchising it or just having a couple more trucks that could do events Bay Area wide,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll just send people out. But really, you know, one of my big dreams is to eventually, and no pressure to my daughter, but to eventually have that be her first job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like she can just work the truck and see, you know, if it's something that, you know, because I think that it's good to, it's just a good asset to have around, you know,
Yeah.
to be able to use it as work. And I just learned that if it's your own child, there are no age rules. As long as they're not touching food,
Mm-hmm.
they can be in the truck, maybe help with, you know, the register. So I'm thinking, you know, in a few years, you know, when she gets the math a little more and doesn't give the wrong change back.
Yeah.
You know, I can have her around for a few hours, you know, because really this truck is for my daughters. This is their truck.
Mm-hmm.
And actually the name says it, Nissa. It's Niara and Daisa put together.
Okay.
So Nissa is them. It's part of, it's a legacy, you know, that I want to leave behind. You know, of course, the biggest legacy are my daughters. But then this truck is also like part of it, you know, with them.
Now, I assume you're taking your experience in this food truck and also using it as examples in your own financial business, right?
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm putting together a food truck course.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people out there that they would love to have some kind of food truck, but again, the ideas, but you don't know how to execute it. And many times you're willing to execute, you just don't have the guideline, the tools to do it.
Right. So if I were to guess, about 75% of people have had a food truck dream. I was one of them. I'm like, what would it be like to have a food truck? And so, yeah, there's a lot of curiosity around this type of business. And again, it's going to grow. The mobile business, be it food, be it whatever, be it a mobile office, it's going to keep growing.
So do you think you'll experiment at some point with a different type of mobile truck? Maybe like a mobile financial truck?
Then I'd be spreading myself thin at that point. You know, because I don't know. Because I've never needed an office for the financial consulting that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would just be like a luxury to have a mobile office, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like real estate. I mean, real estate is really going away from having an office space.
Totally.
Keller Williams in Oakland, they have so many agents, and it's amazing to see how small of an office they have.
Yeah.
They literally have 3 or 4 private offices that I guess you could rent, or some of the top producers will have.
Yeah.
But these offices are tiny little closets. They're just little tiny workspaces.
Yeah.
They have they have a few conference rooms to meet clients, and then they have one big training room,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. And when I asked the broker, they have something like 60, 70 agents working out of this tiny little office. It's like everyone's mobile these days. Like,
Yeah.
there's no need for an office.
No. And again, follow technology, you know. Follow, you know, the mobile phone. Everything's going mobile.
Yeah.
Everything's going to go mobile. And so, again, there's going to be a huge demand beyond the food truck for mobile business. And so this class that I'm creating is going to take people through every piece of it, like every piece of it. And the beauty of it is that it's not going to be taught by someone that just learned it and is basically regurgitating it back to the crowd. Like, I've been through it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a class full of my personal stories, mistakes, which are plenty. And, you know, with my financial background, we're going to go through financial projections. I mean, it's just going to be complete, very experiential.
Very cool. You'll have to get back into doing those videos for your financial business. Yeah, I mean, really get back into those videos and really, especially now that you have the experience with a food truck, you know, put together the course, but then put together the YouTube channel again.
I know. Yeah, I know. Again, I keep kicking myself for not continuing those videos because it was something that was working. But you know, we're human. We're very irrational in how we react. You know, even though something seemed like the right way to go, we go the opposite way. Why? I don't know. And, you know, I feel like this was a very irrational part of my life, you know, this whole food truck journey. But I'm enjoying it, you know. And, you know, in the end, it's all about like...
But everyone needs a little irrationality, right? A little chaos in their life.
Yeah. I mean, I just...
Helps you grow.
Helps you grow, you know. And again, when you feel uncomfortable is when you grow. And I felt very uncomfortable throughout this whole journey. I'm uncomfortable now about tomorrow's event, you know, because, you know, I'm still new at this.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the first event we did, ton of mistakes. Ran out of cups, ran out of milk, had to tell a line of 30 people, there's no more cups, so we can't serve the coffee. Do you want gelato? I mean, but I'm learning. I'm not making that mistake again.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what mistakes am I going to make tomorrow? And so, but some article I read said that when you don't risk, it says that people that lead risky lives tend to be happier.
I can totally see that.
You know, because when there's risk, there's the unknown. And when there's the unknown, there's an excitement. Some people call it fear. Some people call it's exciting. Adrenaline, right? But it keeps things new. And I guess that's part of why I did this.
Very neat. So if someone wants to book you, what's the best way they can book your truck?
So they can they can send me an email at events@Nissa Bar. That's NISSA bar, BAR.com.
And then do you have a website? I know you have
I
know you have Facebook. I know it's still new and everything, but
we're so new we didn't even have business cards. Yeah, it's so new.
But you do have a Facebook channel.
We have a Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter. The website, I have the URL. We're still gonna, build the website. It's in our short-term plan. Business cards, those needed to happen like yesterday because so many people have been.
It's amazing when you're building the business how so many things get overlooked because you're working on so many other important things.
Yeah, my goal was this truck, to finish this truck, you know, and. Yeah. So, you know, the small details sometimes get left behind.
Yeah.
You know, also one thing, and I don't know if this is going back a bit, but one thing I wanted to say is, you know, we talked about, like, people can talk all they want and, you know, never do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a saying, and I forget a quote, I forget the author, but he says, the proof that you believe in something is in action. And one day I was walking down the street and it was graffitied like near the Fox Theater in Oakland, like on a plank. And I just stood there for a second. I'm like, man, like, I mean, you know, most quotes are like, that's so true, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that really got to me because again, we tend to talk so much about everything that we want to do in life. And then when it comes down to doing it, we're like, And my wife is like, she was part of the reason why I just jumped in. She's like, well, like, talk about it.
She gave you full support?
She gave me full support. I love her so much.
That's one thing that's really, I think, not talked about much, is that many times these different ventures, and when you see them successful, the person that's really in charge, leading it, the business owner, whatever the case is, they have a lot of support at home.
Yeah.
And that's one huge thing, because when they don't have the support at home, things fall apart. Yeah. And when things fall apart in other aspects of their life, then they can't give all the attention they can to the business, and then the business falls apart, and it just like snowballs.
Yeah.
And so that support at home is really important.
No, it is. It's huge. And so, we're like, we've both supported each other. Like, I supported her through her whole career. She just started working, like, at 36. She just started working for the first time, like an actual, like, full-on job. Mm-hmm. All her life has been her career, studying, getting through school, residency, and now she has a job. And so, we do this for each other, and that's why the relationship works. And and there's a lot of trust, and that's just a show of love, like, I do for you, and then it gets reciprocated.
Yeah, and that's really important, like, when you're doing a business. Yeah, because nothing is worse than you're struggling on the business, trying to get it off the ground, building it, and then you've got problems at home on top of it.
Totally.
Or no support, and even to a point where they don't believe in you.
Yeah,
that's even worse.
Yeah, and to come out of left field and say, I'm going to do a food truck. There's plenty of people that will say, like will not believe.
Yeah.
Just because they're like, what do you know about food trucks? What do you know about the food industry and this and that? And so, I was treading waters that, my wife could have easily said, like, I'm not going to support this. But she believes in me. There's that trust. And again, that's why our relationship works, is because I trust her, she trusts me. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Yeah, and that's awesome that you have that support.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, Alex, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
It was a great episode. We hit up so many different really good topics. Good luck in the business, in both your businesses, in the financial consultant and the food truck. And I'll have to catch you at one of these events. And,
awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
And hope you enjoyed the wine.
Definitely did.
Yeah.
Definitely did. Thank you.
I'm going to take another bite of it because it's good. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at markguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.